Have you ever had such a bad day that you said, I want to slit my own throat? Well, that's apparently what the union members are saying. This is, well, predicted in the past, of course. Everyone saw this coming, including the union workers and, let's be frank, the union bosses with the big EV push. As I'm sure you've heard, the union Teamsters didn't exactly endorse Donald Trump. However, they did not endorse the Democratic candidate, which is a massive change of step for them after years and decades, really, of endorsing just kind of off cuff the Democratic candidate. This is a massive win for the Republican Party and America First. The future of America First really is perfectly aligned with unions. Unions are America First. It's protectionist trade policy. It is protecting the working class, their jobs, their income, their health, their standard of living in and out of the Rust Belt, but especially in the Rust Belt. We're talking Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. Ohio was up there for a little bit. That seems to be secured, but we cannot forget about Ohio. A lot going on in Ohio right now. So let's get into the story from the New York Post. Michigan union members blame Biden electric vehicle mandates for auto industry layoffs. Want to slit our throats. Ann Arbor, Michigan. That's where I was born. The auto industry is a big business in Michigan, obviously. Major rounds of layoffs is revving the election into high gear for industrial workers in a crucial swing state who blame the Biden administration heavy-handed electric vehicle mandates for painful job losses. Let's see if it talks about the conversion. So announced last month the layoff of 2,450 workers at the Warren plant, while industry jobs in the state have been declining since 1990. That was one of the biggest reasons my family left Michigan and never went back. The writing was on the wall with the auto industry, with the unions asking a lot and possibly too much from the actual manufacturers themselves. And then NAFTA came in. NAFTA was an absolute disaster introduction, free trade to align Mexico, Canada, and the United States. It was pushed out as this great, we're going to open up the borders, things are going to get better for everybody. And it really hasn't. I mean, really, this has been a massive fail for on the backs of union workers. And year after year after year, that has happened. And let's not forget, when Donald Trump was running in 2016, that was the biggest thing, right? He was going to revive the Rust Belt. We also had, the AC company, I think it was Carrier, that was going to shut down a plant from Indiana, I believe, move it to Mexico. He said, no, we're not going to do that. He kept it open. Putting our electric motor together is like building a pinwheel or a paper airplane. There's some level of work that involves with it, but the skill level really isn't there. Okay. Less parts means less employees. That's why we're doing the layoffs, because they can't sell the vehicles that the government, particularly Kamala Harris, is mandating them to buy. A Republican congresswoman told the Post, listen, you want to buy an EV car? Great, she announced. But the auto workers, the automakers know that we can't survive because the infrastructure isn't there for EV. Nobody wants to buy them. Ford slashed more than 1,000 jobs at its Rogue Electric Vehicle Center in Dearborn, Michigan, after drastically scaling back productions of the F-150 Lightning, an all-electric pickup truck. That's one of the biggest things with the electric vehicles is that the charging stations. I had several coworkers that had Teslas for a while. Very cool car to drive. It's fun, but if you are a commuter, if you have a job where you're moving around town, they have the quick charging stations, but now you got to sit there for 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes. Or they're at restaurants. Okay, great. Now every time I want to charge, I have to go buy a meal, for $30 or something. To me, that just doesn't seem like a win. Let's continue to move on. Ford reported a 132 $100,000 loss in the year's first quarter on each of the 10,000 vehicles it sold. Which is 20% fewer EVs than sold prior period. So let's see. Last week announced a $406 million investment into Michigan auto plants as part of a concession to the union. I can tell you that we've been promising investments where I work at each tech center for years now. And I'll just put it this way. It doesn't appear to be happening. They can promise one thing and change the plan tomorrow. So the promise is, oh, we're going to invest, millions of dollars into this plant, get the headline, and then change the plans. We'll come revisit it in 9 months. So let's listen to what Donald Trump had to say about this real quick. It's very funny the way that he is putting this as an endorsement. Let's hear what he has to say.
Earlier today, I was honored to receive the endorsement of the rank and file membership of the Teamsters. I love the Teamsters. They delivered all that concrete for those buildings I built in New York. They delivered the big, heavy, most beautiful trucks you've ever seen. They delivered the concrete in all those buildings I built in New York. But, this hasn't happened in so many decades. We won the overwhelming majority of the local chapters and the members, and as a result, the national organization has refused to endorse the Democrat candidate for the first time in many, many decades. And I also want to thank Teamsters President Sean O'Brien, an amazing man, and all of the incredible rank-and-file Teamsters across the country, because this was a surprise. It's automatic. They endorse the Democrats, automatic for many, many decades. But you know what? They said, they looked at her, they said, we're not going there. I'm sorry. These are tough people.
There you have it. These are tough people. And of course, there's a bunch of different interviews, on Fox News and whatnot, to the president, the Teamster president, who did speak at the RNC this year and got a lot of flack for it. And this guy was kind of ahead. I think he was doing his own internal polling. He saw where his people were, maybe not the white collared or the upper echelons of these Teamster unions, but definitely the rank and file people that are filling the factories. They see the issues. They don't think Kamala Harris is going to fix them for them. With Joe Biden, he was kind of like, Scranton Joe, which he wasn't, he's from Scranton, but hadn't lived there for 20 years. But he could at least put on a persona. Kamala Harris can't do that. She's from California. She's a DA. She's not really from a working class union type family. In their mind, and I'm projecting this point, I'm not, again, I don't live up there. I'm not part of a union. I think that they see Donald Trump as someone that has for a long time now tried to at least address their issues or at least speak about them at a bare minimum. Kamala Harris really hasn't made that pitch. She really hasn't made that pitch. They just kind of assume it has it coming. So she does have the one time she went to the rally and was sounding very Southern black when she was saying, "You better thank a union member." That was pretty much her pitch. All right, from the Hill, Teamster leaders says Harris Trump wouldn't commit. So this is the cover. They're saying, well, we're not going to endorse a candidate because, we sat down with both of them and neither of them could commit to our issues. Okay, fair enough. That's actually a really, really good cover story. The thing about the union is that, it's not really one for all. It's you're going to join or you're not going to get a job in this factory, right? And so that isn't an issue of itself. But let's say you join and then you get the job. You're stuck. Everything is laid out for you. It's very much like the military as far as how fast you can get raises, when you can get raises, how fast you can move up from position to position. Everything is really well laid out. And really, you're just taking orders or really accepting the outcomes of whatever the head shed decides to pass down to you. And in this case, they saw that it was 58, 38 or something like that to Donald Trump. And when I asked about it, it says 60% of his members who want the union to endorse Trump, the union leaders reiterated that we couldn't get commitment on the issue. So 60% of the members, I think it was 58%, what have you, said they were endorsing Donald Trump. Now, side note, they're endorsing Donald Trump. Are they going to actually go out and vote? They need to. They need to go out and vote. Okay. At this point with the Electoral College, America is depending on you in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and in Wisconsin. Union members, if you are saying you're going to endorse Trump, you need to register to vote, and you need to go out and vote. You need to bring your family members out to vote. And you explain to why that this, of the two options you have, is the best option for your job, for the industry that you're in, and for the country. Let's see about this donation, and I'm looking at it here. Brian has worked to make inroads with Republicans to advance his union policy priorities and fuel speculation that the union could once again endorse a GOP candidate when he spoke at the RNC and after the union's PAC donation, $45,000, nice, to the Republican National Committee earlier this year for the first time in 2 decades. 2 decades is the first time that they have put any money to a Republican RNC. Well, this is the Republican National Committee. I'm sure that they donate to Republicans in their area, much like the teacher unions. You know, their contributions go wildly 90% to Democrats. However, in local races, they do spread a little bit of money around. This right here is a campaign tactic as well. You know, everyone knows that these campaigns run on massive donations. This right here, you can start taking that margin from them, giving them more and more trouble to raise money. This is a really good thing. Republicans need to lean into America first, and they need to lean into the unions and the Rust Belt. This is where they can pick up gains, not only in the Electoral College, maybe a Senate seat or two, but you definitely have House seats that are well within the margin if you start really leaning into a union, America first, protectionist trade, good working conditions. All these things are easy to do. It's time to get rid of the Koch brothers ideology of open borders, cheap labor. And if we can make it here, great. But if not, we'll go ahead and send it on down to Mexico because there's less regulations down there. The issue, it goes on and on. Notably, the polling conducted by President Biden before he dropped out in the race showed Teamsters preferring Biden to Trump 44% to 36%. So not only has it flipped, but it's flipped more in Trump's favor. So that's a big one. They're wholeheartedly rejecting Kamala Harris. So O'Brien bristled at the notion that the union should automatically endorse a Democratic presidential candidate, although the Teamsters have consistently endorsed Democratic candidates in recent election cycles, including Biden in 2020. Dang. The union has endorsed presidential candidates, including Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, and George H.W. Bush. Okay. That's interesting. So George H.W. Bush was the last one, and so that would have been, 88 or something? So, yeah, it's been a hot minute. That is for sure. And it's just across all of I kind of try to pick left-leaning-ish news sources on this one. Teamsters to decline to endorse the candidate. Again, I can't stress this enough. You know, if you want to fight for right to work in these states, you should fight for right to work. However, that doesn't mean you also cannot back the unions. That doesn't also mean you can't team up with trade policies that would help the unions. Keeping American manufacturing and technology inside the United States. This also serves as, competition protections. Companies have to compete for hiring and wages to get the best people to come into their factories. If these factories are getting shut down and then sent overseas or to Mexico, generally speaking, to produce the same quality of product, the product is never going to get better, or there's a delay in it getting better, right? But if the factories had to stay here and they had to pay those wages, there would be more of a push for research and development to make products better. Now, how good can you get a car, right? That's one thing. However, there's many other unions in technology and engineering. Another thing that Donald Trump and the RNC really hasn't brought up that much was the Keystone Pipeline being shut down. How many pipe fitter unions and the tertiary suppliers of those goods and services got affected? That's a huge example of the Biden administration, Biden Kamala Harris administration stepping in and kind of not helping out the unions in a really big way. Those were direct job layoffs. Another great one, and Mr. O'Brien here mentioned that, hey, look, we don't want them interacting, or we just want them, at this point, he's saying they just want them to stay out of the negotiations. Let's not forget the railroad shutdown about 2 years ago, where the situation with the staffing and the scheduling and the time off and all these things, where the railroad union, workers union, was like, hey, we need to do something else here, and we're going to go on strike. Now, I believe this was right before a midterm. Could be off. It could have been before the general. And the federal government, the Biden and Harris administration, stepped in and forced an agreement that really did make things a little bit better, but is not anywhere near what the union was going for. They want them to stay out of their business. Now, that is something that I think Republicans can be very good at, is just leaving people alone and not telling them how to live their lives, or stepping into union busting or union contract debates. This is a big win for the Republican Party. We need to continue to lean into this. The areas, besides the technology and manufacturing base, which that's what America First is all about, this is also an electoral win. This is a congressperson win. This is a Senate seat win. This right here, all through the Rust Belt, this is huge, and we need to continue to double down on it. I would love to see over the next week, of course, there's going to be statements being on repeat about Donald Trump's negative comments about unions overall. And you know what? I think that's fair. That is very fair. And you know what? Some of the first people to say bad things about unions are union members. Talk to them. It's not all sunshine and rainbows when people are in the union. There's a lot of things they don't agree with. Again, it's like, if you want to work here, you're going to join the union. And after that, you're just kind of along for the ride. Yes, they have internal polls, they have internal votes, things of that nature. But let's face it, just kind of like you and I going to the voting booth, we don't really have a direct outcome on the policies that are implemented by the upper headshed. And a lot of times it comes up short of the needs and wants, or it's completely against the needs and wants of the union members. So criticizing a union is not necessarily a bad thing. And I think that just a more open, honest conversation about the union. Sometimes unions ask for too much. Sometimes it's not possible for a company continue to give wage raises when you're already making so much more than everyone else in the city. We saw that in the downturn of 2008 when everything started going upside down. And they started having to close factories, reinvest in robotics to have less people on the line, less issues with employees, things of that nature. That's going to be a natural trend. So, guys, this is awesome news. I'm very excited. I was very, very happy and blown away to see this. The fact that they didn't endorse the whoever came out on top, it wasn't even close. It was an absolute blowout. 60% to Donald Trump. They didn't want to endorse Donald Trump. You can see the level of disdain and distrust, and really almost corruption of the upper echelon of some Teamster groups, where they didn't want to endorse. Now, if this was the other way, it would have, oh yes, we endorse Kamala Harris, of course, yes. But now it's like, oh, well, we're not really sure about that. That's because they want to continue to get invited to the cocktail parties. They want to continue to get those front row seats. They want to continue to, be invited to DC and things of that nature. And that's what's really all about. They want to be closer to power. Will that happen if they endorse Republicans and Donald Trump? They fear that the Republicans would not continue that trend of inviting them to DC, getting them to the cocktail parties and things of that nature. And so that's just something we'll have to work on. Maybe we'll need to make more cocktail parties, which is fine with me. I definitely like to drink. I wouldn't mind setting some of those up. Guys, this is all I got for right now. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will be back soon with another news article. Thank you so much.